Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting, special meeting on the budget. I ask that we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance before we begin our meeting. Thank you. I don't know how anyone feels, but I personally, let's have, before we begin this evening, Deputy Clerk, may we start off with a roll call?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodericks.
Here.
Councilman Souza. Council President Brito.
Yeah, thank you. Tonight, during the budget session's introduction to presentation by the mayor and administration, proposed for fiscal year 2023. A workshop discussion on page numbers refer to fiscal year 23 proposed budgets available online as well. Mayor, you want to begin with your proposed fiscal 2023 budget?
Thank you, Council President and Council. Today I stand before you with our fiscal 23 budget that has been carefully crafted to conduct a high level of service for our residents and at the same time keep the fiscal impact to our taxpayers at a minimal. Next screen. So this year's 2023 general fund expenditures total of $187,073,431. What makes up that ask? City operating expenses have increased by 1.8 million for city operations, and then another 3.6 million in debt service. So if you look at the increase overall, it's $9.5 million. 6.24% of that comes on the city side, but it's important to remember that 3.6 million of that is debt services that go towards the construction of the high school. School department has increased by 4 million, 4.48%. So together, that makes up the total new increase in the allotment. Primarily, you're going to see that on the city side, we have municipal salaries and contractual obligations that we have to meet. We also had a police and fire pension increase to meet the annual required contribution of $302,000. And once again, on top of that, you've got the $4 million increase for school department and $3.6 million in debt service for the school construction bonds. Next. You're going to see that most of the increase in our budget on the city side is really related to inflationary costs. We've been hit by inflation like everybody else, and inflation's been high, as we've all seen. And the cost of electricity, heating, and gasoline and diesel has gone up. So you're going to see within each department line, we tried to level fund the departments as closely as we could, but within some department lines, you'll see a modest increase because we had to deal with the increase of goods and heating and gas. Next. So we've accomplished a lot with this budget. We're continuing critical infrastructure improvements. We've got money in the capital project that includes more money for road paving. We've strengthened the police and fire pension by adding more and meeting our ARC. We're continuing to recruit and try to fill police officer positions. One of the things that we found while putting this budget together was that, nationwide, there's a real difficulty in trying to hire police officers and recruit police officers and fill vacancies. We had been budgeted at, I believe, 103. We never reached that number. So this year we reduced the number, knowing full well that we're not going to be able to reach that 103 number. But for budgeting purposes, we brought that number down a little bit. We continue to support our schools. This year's budget came in at the max 4%. So the school department is able to, by state law, they can't go over 4% from the previous year's ask. So this year they came in at 4%. And we're funding that full 4%. We're supporting our public schools and our students. Next. How are we going to fund some of these proposed increases? We are getting, we have the motor vehicle tax phase out that's happening, and that will be taking place next year. So we'll be seeing $5 million in motor vehicle tax phase out money coming in. We've got approximately $3 million in the public safety camera fines that will be coming in. And we actually received good news today. I was informed by our finance director that he had received an email late yesterday verifying that we were going to be receiving an additional $1 million in housing aid to help fund the construction of the schools, to help pay the debt service off. So what we had budgeted for in the original budget was $1.4 million. And we submitted that budget because that was what we knew we were getting. We didn't have confirmation on the other $1 million. So you had to go based on what you knew. So we put that through, and good news is we got this information. And so we're looking at $2.4 million in housing aid, which will help reduce the overall levy increase. So we're getting $1.3 million in school state aid, $800,000 in school Medicaid, $300,000 will be coming out of capital. And you see the $2.6 million, that's due to the car tax phase out. So you're actually reducing your overall revenue because of the way that the formula is set up. So with that in mind, it was important for us to craft a budget that kept our level of services at the high level that we're all used to and that we're accustomed to. But at the same time, put in a budget that's not going to, impact our taxpayers too heavily. So with this budget, originally when we proposed it, there was a 1.57% increase in the tax levy. After receiving the news that we got the additional $1 million coming in, you're looking at a 0.67% tax levy increase. That means that's not the tax rate increase, that's the levy in the taxes. As you all know, we will be going into a reval, and because we have an off year, we're not really able to tell you definitively what our tax rate is going to be until we get that process completed later in the year. But based on what that number represents, and based on the average household price of $232,000, you're looking at a $30 per month increase. Now, of course, we understand that after the reval, you'll see the average number and average price of a house will definitely increase, but then the mill rate would decrease to that $30 per month. So that's what you're looking at. We feel very proud of this budget because we think it meets all the city's needs while keeping in mind our taxpayers. Next, please. Over the last year, I just wanted to highlight some of the grants that we received that helps our taxpayers, keep their money in their pocket because this money is coming from other sources. But we did receive a $400,000 Kent Heights Recreation Facility renovation grant. Previously, the council had approved some capital money. So with that $400,000 and that matching money, we plan on seeing some really incredible renovations and improvements to Kent Heights. We've already contracted, we went out to RFP, and we've contracted with an architect to lay out a preliminary plan, and then we'll meet with the council members and the public to get their input and see how things go. Additionally, Grassy Plains Park, we've made incredible improvements to that park over the last couple of years. And additionally, we have $72,000 total in new grants that will be going towards making improvements, some trails and some walking paths in that area. We've got a nice grant from Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, $225,000 for stormwater infiltration, flood protection at Willett Pond. Where the reason why you haven't seen any more work at Willett Pond is we're actually waiting on DEM's final permit approvals. And hopefully when we get that, we can start finalizing some of the work there at Willett Pond. But we have, out of that $225,000, that'll help make some improvements at Willett Pond, at Beach Road, and also at the Silver Street pump station. So that'll be a nice project. Additionally, we did receive $276,000 for Wi-Fi. We're working on bringing Wi-Fi to some of the high-rise public housing, low-income facilities here in the city. So our IT department's been working on that project with Dave Bacharach, our community development director. So we're really doing the initial ground floor work right now before we finalize what we're going to do with that grant. Next, please. Our senior center has been hard at work putting in for grants. We received a $39,000 grant that helped pay for a 14-passenger vehicle. We got a grant that's going to help pay for a healthy aging nurse coordinator to support health programs. And then we also have received some money to make improvements to the senior center cafe and the fitness center. Additionally, we have a community health worker that we just got a $91,000 grant. That's also to help our senior population be paired up with those health services throughout the city so that they take care of themselves and we can help them take care of their medical needs. Next. We continue to see savings in our 10-year contract with Suez and the conversion of our streetlights. We've moved quite a long way on the conversion of the streetlights to LED. That's going to see savings, and that's reflected in this budget. And we also did negotiate a 10-year contract with Suez that saw significant savings to the taxpayers, or ratepayers. Additionally, just a quick update in the way of an update, the primary clarifier covers that project is moving along. It's something that there were some delays, some supply side and supply line delays that kept that project from getting done within the first year. As you recall, in our contract with Suez, they were supposed to get that done within the first year, but I was informed, we met with some of the people from, which, by the way, now they're called Viola, a new company took over. So we met with some of the representatives from Viola, and they are on track to get that project done. Hopefully, we'll be able to report on some actual construction taking place there. We look forward to participating in the public review of this budget. We have our department heads here to answer your questions. And Council President, with that, I submit to you our 2023 budget.
Thank you, Mayor. Does anyone have any questions for the mayor while he's up here?
I have one general question, Mr. Mayor. No surprise that we all, or really, basically we all saw huge price increases last year. Consumer price index is up 9.5% year on year, June to June, and that's for everything. Energy costs are through the roof, 60, 70, 80%. The budget that the council is being presented with, especially when you add in the additional $1 million housing aid, is a pretty nominal increase ask. What was kind of the general thought process that led to, I mean, because we buy a lot of the same things that anybody buys for their house, energy, certainly, supplies, services, how are we sitting at, a 0.5% increase when most people are seeing 9-10%?
So that 0.67% increase is the increase on the potential tax levy or the tax levy. So the funds that support this budget that come directly from taxpayers, right? But we do have other funding sources and other projections. So for instance, we projected $1 million in new growth in this budget. We projected potentially $3 million in fine revenue coming from the safety speed cameras. By the way, that revenue is going directly to support our schools. Our schools came in with a $4 million ask. That full amount goes to support our schools. So that's part of the budget, and that will support our ask from the school department. That $3 million, I don't have to ask for from our residents this year. So if that $3 million wasn't there, you look at potentially a 3.5% tax levy increase or even greater. So we've been able to keep the tax levy increase at a minimal because of economic growth. The tax base is growing. We're projecting $1 million growth. And because of this other source of revenue, that's going to help offset having to raise these funds on the backs of the taxpayers.
One of the reasons that you're seeing such an increase in the school department budget is because they're losing a significant proportion of their state aid because it's based on free and reduced lunch. That percentage of student population decreased, our aid decreases accordingly, and it's going to go down further in future years.
That's correct. That's correct. You know, we looked at the school department budget. We think it's a fair budget. And we wanted to be able to fund it fully. And this is where we ended up sitting down with our finance team and all of our department heads. And we really didn't come in with any extravagant asks. You know, we kept things at pretty much almost level funded. And the costs really, you know, as all of you know on this council, the primary cost of running a government is the cost of your labor force, right? Your labor force is the primary driving cost. And so when you look at the increases in the budget, it's based on contractual obligations that we have to our employees. Now, it should be noted that the fire department, union and our administration have come to a tentative agreement on a contract proposal, 3-year contract proposal that will be coming before the council at the next meeting. Is that correct? The next meeting. And that those increases have been put into this budget already based on what our TA is. We've put those increases right into the budget. So that's there. We're currently in negotiations with the police department, and we have our finance director has put a line in there that holds a placeholder so that, you know, we can fund any potential raises or any type of increases due to the negotiation that's going on with the police department now. So yes, I agree with you. I think when you look at inflation, what it's been nationwide, and when, you know, you're operating a city, you're operating a business, and we're coming back to the ratepayers, the people who fund us, and we're saying, look, we need to increase the levy by 0.67%, which comes out to about $30 right now. The average home in East Providence is $232,000, $30 extra a year to fund the level of services that they've become accustomed to.
President, I just wanted to, you did say $30 a year. I think earlier you mentioned the word month, but it's
Apologize.
a year, right?
It should be $30 a year. I apologize.
Okay. And the only other comment, you mentioned the fire department, and I was very glad to see we just had their recent graduation with 20 recruits. It was nice to be in attendance there, and we're pretty much at full speed, full complement of staff. So all of that is taken care of in this budget.
So right now we have, matter of fact, the budget is going to reflect a decrease in the overtime line because we were able to fully staff the fire department. The contract calls for a 4th rescue staffed, and not full-time, but on a shift basis. So those increases and that extra manpower is going to save us a significant amount of money. But I just told, you know, I was just talking to the fire chief, and he was just telling me that, you know, he just heard that he's got another person who's resigning, going to another municipality up north. And so, you know, it's good. I think that through this budget year, we're going to see a huge savings in overtime and a huge savings in the contract based on the negotiations that we have with the fire union.
And while the chief is here, just anecdotally, I would say good news, congratulations. We had 300 applicants, I was told, in a time when we're also being told that it's hard to get applicants for police and fire. So that was great news. 300, we hired 20, 4 women, the diversity in the group. So it's good news. Thank you, Chief.
I want to thank the council for supporting our budget over the last, we ran 2 academies, you know, in a 3.5-year period during a pandemic. We were able to put on 40 new firefighters. So we have a very young fire department, and that's thanks to the appropriations that you put in the budget to allow us to run those 2 academies. So I want to thank you for that.
I don't want to put pressure on the police chief, but, you know, we equally good luck in your recruiting.
So I want to just touch on one thing that you talked about earlier regarding fire department Just, you know, I'm gonna ask this question with respect to the rescue. So with the additional 40 new firefighters, and we still can't go full-time on the rescue.
No, here's why. Everything is based on the contract and negotiating with the union. Just for us to get before we had this contract, TA, this tentative agreement with the union, before we had that, we had to get an MOU in place with them to have the part-time rescue. Increasing a full-time rescue would be increasing the manning of the department, which would be well over $1 million to try to operate. The conversation we had with the union was, let's put this rescue on the busiest hours, you know, Monday through Friday. I believe it's through 7 to 3 or 8 to 4, one of those blocks. And during those busiest times, they'll be able to handle any of the extra calls that come for service. What I'd like to do eventually in the future is, as funding becomes available, as we can incrementally increase it through the budgeting process, start expanding that. But that would mean increasing the manpower on the fire department. The extra manpower we have right now will help fill in overtime slots, and they will be the extra person on a rescue, or not the rescue, but on an engine or a truck. But ideally, when you put it into the contract that, hey, we're gonna have a full-time rescue, you've got to put, I think, 8, or is it 8? Chief, is it 8? So you need to have an additional 8 firefighters. And that's an expensive proposition to fund all at once. So we are absolutely in favor of having a full-time 24/7 rescue out of Rumford, but this at least gets us in that.
So I'm gonna go back to last year this time, where we didn't have the 2 academies, if I'm not mistaken. Which right now, since then, we had the 2 academies from last year this time, which you recruited an additional 40 firefighters, I think it is.
No.
20. No, because the first academy was 21, 22,
First academy was 20.
20.
And then this last academy, which was this budget year, not this other budget year, it was another 20 that we added on. But that only puts us over because of all the vacancies we had. We've got 10 vacancies. Yeah. With the next. Yeah. So they're filling. So right now, when we brought on those 20, they filled 10 vacancies that were existing. That leaves you 10 extra. We just found out that we're losing another one. That brings us down to 9 extra personnel. And then we just added 2 to the rescue, which leaves you really 7 extra. It only leaves you 7 extra bodies because we have to man that rescue with 2 extra bodies.
We have 3 long-term injured or sick, and they're gonna fill those spots.
Again, I want to go back to last year this time, introduction regarding the fire. During presentation, it was presented that the station, which is station number 3, if I'm not mistaken, will be funded with the rescue.
And that was
Then
because
we-
we went for a safer grant. That was $7.3 million. It was going to cover salaries and benefits for 3 years. We never received that safer grant. So that put us into what we're doing.
So that was anticipation, you're saying.
Anticipating. The council funded a training academy. Got to go on the fast track because we got the safer grant. And only had 120 days to train them.
So what was the increase in the tax last year of $1 million? I thought it was $1 million increase that incorporated to have that rescue at Station 3.
That's correct. Right around 1.2 million.
And we all know that it was a $1 million increase in the fire department based on just that one rescue.
Right. Right about $1 million to man rescue.
I thought part of the
24/7.
tax increase last year was to support that
No, that was
rescue with
$1
million.
That was to support the training academy in case we had that safer grant at the game. We were banking on getting that grant
and having the salaries to pay for the fourth rescue for 3 years in a row, but without the taxpayers having to foot the bill. So that's what happened.
Thank you. Any other further questions?
I have a few questions, actually. So what is the overall raise in taxes for this next fiscal year?
We just can tell you what the tax levy increase, so tax levy being what it is we need in actual dollars. We can't tell you what the actual tax increase would be until we know the evaluations are done, till we get all of our numbers in, really, because we're a unique situation because of our fiscal year being off. This question comes up every year. There's no way for us to really tell you exactly like, oh, it's going to be a 2% increase or 1% increase or a 0.5% increase. What we can tell you right now is that to operate the government of the city of East Providence, you're going to need from the taxpayers an increase on the tax levy of 0.67%. So we'd have to figure that what that translates or what that correlates into an actual increase after you know what the total value is of all of our property, all of our real estate, all of our taxable, tangible goods, business property, commercial property, and residential. And that will happen because we have an evaluation that's going to be happening this year, statistical evaluation. As you know, we put it off a year, and it's going to be happening this year.
What makes this year any different? This budget from the last 3 previous years, when we had an actual percent.
We never did. The last
Last year's increase was what, 1.7 or 0.7%? The year before, 2.3.
I can call Malcolm up here to explain it in more detail, but I can tell you this, that we have a unique situation here where we're always talking about the tax levy. What is the increase in the tax levy? What do I need extra in taxes to operate the government? And then the actual increase to the individual ratepayer is factored once you know the actual value of all of the property that you have in East Providence, because there's new growth that is associated sometimes. There's the new properties that come online. And this year, especially being a reval year, will give us an actual true representation of what the base is that we're taxing. Malcolm, would you like to explain it in more detail?
No,
Last year, I argued that the budget, part of the budget was balanced on the projected reevaluation rates. Was that not part of the argument last year in discussions and budget workshops?
Yes, you're not quite sure.
please step up to the mic.
So then that was postponed, as I know, as we know, that was postponed, the reevaluations by a year. So I don't know what the outcome of that budget, like what happened with that. What I'm asking is, maybe I should reframe, maybe I should ask a different question is that what is the total operating cost all in for the city budget? Last year was 211, right? 211 million, 201 million, something around there.
Yes, I think that included the enterprise funds.
So what is it this year? Maybe we should start there then.
7.
To answer some of your questions, the tax rate is 21.86 for residential. It looks like it's good. If we didn't have a revalve year, it would go up to 22 or 22.01. That would be the new tax rate to get you about $30 more per household. But you understand right now, we're supposed to do a revalve every 3 years. This is our 4th year. When they did it 4 years ago, the average single-family home was worth $232,000. Now it's going to be probably closer to $300,000. So if you're going to go up almost 50%, then the rate will come down.
When are those numbers gonna come in?
We won't know till, well, that's when you start. When the revalve starts, it's got to be as of, we don't really get the final numbers till April or May. It's got to be certified to the state, I think, May, early June, where you get a certified levy.
So when we balance a budget and propose a budget, and I had the same question last year, on what we know now, what the home values are now, what we know, the, revenues that we're taking in, isn't that how you, I'm just asking, I mean, seriously, I want to know for myself, and I keep asking. this
And-
question.
And For everyone else, it's much easier because their fiscal year starts 7/1. They do their budget in May and June. They've got the certified levy, so they know right then what the tax rate's going to be. They put it, this is what it's going to be. We know it's going to be that because we can certify it. With us, we don't certify till May. So right now, we're saying this is our best guess because there's a couple of things in there, but the biggest variable in there could be new growth. And so if new growth comes in at 2 million, then the tax rate goes down. If it comes in less than 1 million, it'd be a little higher,
We're projecting that there's gonna be $2 million of new growth.
1 million.
Council President, excuse me, but I don't know if we get into police tonight.
Yes.
I'll ask, I have some more questions on that, but I'll save it until we get over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just had one. Mayor, on the grants that we received under the senior center, we had the coordinator and the community health worker, which I think are wonderful, but I didn't notice that. Is that a one-time use or is that a continuing position? Because I didn't notice it under the senior centers. budget.
Those are grant funded positions.
So
Once that money runs out, then we'll have to find money elsewhere or just continue the project, but we're hoping to find money elsewhere.
so they're not accounted for in the senior center's budget. So as separate, and we're doing it separately under a grant,
Grant funded positions, they wouldn't be in the budget.
right? They're not listed in the budget as, okay.
Any other further questions? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
With that being said, we'd like to begin the discussions on each of the departments. Any objections of having the police department?
I have no objections.
So would it be okay if we go police, fire, and DPW? Get the three right out immediately in that order. Chief, thank you.
Good evening, council.
Evening.
Council President, is communications gonna be on the police also?
Is communications on the department? Or that's a separate department now? Mayor, is that a separate department now? It's under, okay. Chief, would you like to talk about the
Sure. So
as well?
this year, the police department, we're gonna be funded at 97 sworn officers and 6 civilian clerk positions for a total of 103. Currently, just to give you a snapshot of where we're at right now, we have 88 sworn officers. 88 sworn officers. We are going to have 3 retirements prior to the end of this fiscal year, which will bring us to 85. We have 5 in the academy right now, which we anticipate them graduating end of December, beginning of January, putting us at 90. I project 5 to 6 retirements next fiscal year. And we anticipate putting hopefully 5 or 6 more in the January academy, where, that would bump us back up close to 90 or so, hopefully. And then the mid-year academy and hopefully laterals will get us into, pushing the mid-90s. So that's where we stand, personnel wise. Any questions regarding that?
So,
Okay, Councilor.
so the overall budget for the police department this 2022-23 is 17 million, right, correct?
Correct.
And last year's was 17,029,000.
29, yep.
And then when we had these discussions last year, as everyone knows, I was opposed to moving the dispatch out of the police department. This council, along with the mayor, described to me, explained that by removing that dispatch center out of police department, we were basically just minusing what the cost was for the dispatch center and moving it to a new department, which is communications. So, and I did the simple math last year and here we are again. And that simple math was around $1 million, which it really is. Last year was 1.179. Now we're at 1.194,000 for the dispatch center communications. Yet the police budget is still the same. So my argument last year is the same as this year, that by moving that dispatch center, actually added more money on the taxpayers. Over $1 million.
Thank you, Chief. Councilman Morado, you would have to compare this year's budget to not this current budget, the previous budget, because the move was made in the previous budget. So the numbers here, you're not going to see a huge difference because we didn't do it in this year's budget with this, if you follow what I'm saying, this move already happened. So you'd have to go back, not this year's budget, you'd have to go back to the fiscal year 2021 budget to see the difference. If you wanted to see what it was budgeted at in fiscal year 2021, look at the police department, fiscal year 2021, compare it to fiscal year 2023, and you're going to see a dramatic decrease because we did move those positions and anything associated with the communications people to a separate line item. That was for better tracking and understanding and what the actual cost is. Because as we learned, overtime costs or any type of cost associated with communications was falling under the police department, but communications service both the police and fire. And we didn't think it was fair to have a budget on the police side represent this type of expense when it was not their expense alone. It belonged to both the fire communications and the police communications. So all we did is we didn't create a new department. We created a new line item and moved those things out. But you'd have to look at the prior fiscal year, not this year, because that already had happened. That move already happened.
So by doing that, and I'm looking at it right now, from fiscal year 2019-2020 to this proposed budget, it's only $118,000 in difference. I'm talking about $1.1 million in difference.
I'd like you to look at, if we can pull up the fiscal year 2021, 2020,
I-
2020, 2021.
Right here as proposed. Right.
2021 is the one we want to look at. Because if you're looking at the 19, you're looking at a department that was not, but we budgeted that department much higher, personnel-wise, members-wise, officer-wise. If you look at sworn personnel, we increased that number one of those years, and that makes a big difference. You can pull that up. I don't know if you can find it.
I'm missing something. I'm missing something. Someone explain that a little bit clearer, because obviously I don't understand that. My layman brain doesn't understand the basic math. So you're saying that to go back to 2019, which I'm looking right at it, it's 516,582,000. Then you have the 2020 budget, 16,947. 2021, 17,029,000. And here we are, this proposed budget, 17,065,000. But yet it's increased. We removed that dispatch section, the portion of paying those employees and everything that goes with it, put into a different department, and that department is over $1 million. I don't understand. I don't know where the math, but I'm missing the connection here. I don't know where the cost savings are by doing that.
It was never going to be,
But there's supposed to be cost savings.
It was
That
saving-
the
we would-
argument last year. That's
we would-
why.
moving the communications line from the police side to a separate line so you can track and see exactly what the expenses are running communications. That's what we were doing. And like I said, it wasn't fair to have the police department carry that full burden of that in their budget when they service both the fire and police.
Chief, question for you. When the communications was in the police department, did the dispatchers count as personnel for that budget year? Any given year they were.
Prior to them, yeah, they were in our budget.
So now the dispatchers are now being separated and put into a different category, correct?
That's correct. They're in public safety 760.
All of the expenses that go for each personnel, salary, pension contributions, medical, all of that goes with them to that new category, which is communications.
That's correct.
So do you understand what my points are, where it was all under one roof at one point, and here's the budget. Now you're separating staff and expenses that go with that personnel. Here's another budget. You add those two together, it's a lot more than what originally, what the historic, budgets were for each of those years when they were on the police budget. So how is that cost savings? That's over $1 million more than what we're paying, where they should have been in the police department to begin with. That's my point.
Understood. I just don't,
Was there a new?
I don't know if we're, we were budgeted at a higher rate of police officers last year. I don't know if that may make a difference. But I don't know specifically what the difference, is coming from at this point. That I'm not able to speak on it. That's for sure.
Councilman, we'd have to look at the workforce plans because we did change number of police officers budgeted. So yes, you're correct. We moved the dispatches, just moved the line out from the police budget to a separate line so we can track what the actual cost of operating communications was. But we did also increase number of police officers budgeted. So that makes a big difference. So just looking across the line, as you're looking across this line, that's not going to tell you the full story because you need to look at each workforce plan for that year. So we can try to get you the workforce plans for that year, for each year, and then you can see how many police officers were budgeted, how many were not, and that would make a difference.
I'm not gonna belabor this part. So two questions. So did the number of dispatchers decrease from previous numbers to right now with this going into this new budget year? Do you have less, same or more dispatchers? Okay. Just same 11 that were on the police, right? Budget.
Last year and this coming fiscal year.
And then on top of that, right? So you had you always had 13, basically roughly 13 vacancies budgeted in the police budget. Last year, there was 13 vacancies that the budget that was passed funded for 13 vacancies, correct?
Sworn police officer vacancies.
Right. Probationary line item. It was around 13. This year it's 6, right? Which is great. So because realistically, you're not going to get 13 officers. It's academy, as we know. It's not easy, even if they had seats. So that's further reduced. So my point is now the projected, and I understand pension contributions and contractual obligations, but it's still, they should be less significantly based on what I just mentioned, plus moving those dispatches into a different category, which are now, communications. That's what I'm saying. I don't have any more questions on that.
Councilman?
Chief, may I bring you up there?
Absolutely.
So I just want to go through, so understanding last year, we funded at the full authorization.
Correct.
And this year we're making an adjustment because we're adjusting to reality of not getting from 88 to 103.
Correct.
You're not going to see that.
This past year was more of a,
Work? Everybody hear me? Okay.
this past year was much more of an eye opener as to the realities of recruiting and recruiting qualified candidates, I should say. And it's not unique to here. It's not unique to Rhode Island. It's a nationwide issue where we're seeing many less applicants than we have in the past. And the quality of applicant has also decreased.
So, and I think I've asked this before. I'm just going to ask it again. I know that you probably cannot provide any conjecture, but these 5 cadets that we've got in the academy now, they will then have to go through field training when they complete the academy, assuming they complete the academy.
successfully, right?
That's correct. And we should back up for a second. It was 6. We already
6.
lost 1. Yeah.
6. Oh, it was 6. One is
It was 6. 1 withdrew from the academy on his own accord. And yes, it's still a long way to go from them. Graduating the academy alone does not make them a, successful solo police officer. They still enter our field training program where their training continues for a minimum of 3 more months. And oftentimes it's extended to try to, cover some deficiencies that the recruit may have. So it is a long road.
So it's not only getting the officers, it's retaining them as well.
It's the current state we're in right now. It's picking the best of what you have to pick from. It's doing everything you can to support them in the academy to be successful. And it's a lot of work to make them successful during field training. We're at times taking a chance on someone. So we have to be extra careful in FTO just because the numbers are so low. So we have to be, even more concerned what we're doing.
They're not listening.
If I may just follow that train of thought. I know we've had some success with the lateral program
Mhm.
the last few years. Generally, if you had to guess, how many could we reasonably expect, net gain via lateral?
Well, we've had tremendous success with that, I should say first. We have attracted some very good police officers. Really, without the lateral program over the last 5 years, to be honest with you, I don't know where we would be at. The problem is, we were the pioneer in the lateral kind of thing in Rhode Island. Now everybody's doing it
Everybody caught up.
in order to, survive. So we're still successful though. The last lateral process we had probably about 6 months ago, we onboarded some really good cops. It worked well. So that's part of my plan as we move, looking into the next fiscal year is having that lateral program to kind of, supplant what we're getting through the entry level academy route.
So, I mean, I'm just trying to, if I run the numbers on your projections with retirement, 2 cycles of retirement, 2 academies, and I'm going to throw 6 into the next academy, just for basis of comparison. If we get no net increase in laterals, right? Lateral out, lateral in, that's a 0. Then that brings us to effectively 91 sworn officers in the fiscal year.
That's without 91 would be without laterals
Without any laterals.
and without the it would be the August of next year academy class. We'd also like to put folks into that. There's only 2 academies a year, January and August. So we have folks in right now, next January, and then next August, we'd also like to add. So hopefully, I'm thinking we can bump that number up from 90.
So they'll largely be funded over the 2023, FY 24 budget, right?
Well, I believe, no, we would fund those going in the fall.
The academy fund them in there, okay.
Yes, yep.
So if you pick up 2 or 3 there, you pick up 4 laterals, you're coming pretty close to your 97-ish number, which I get is largely a wag anyway, right? I mean, you're coming up with the best number that you can with a lot of that.
A lot of dynamics. I'd be very happy if we got there. We'd have been a much better place.
I don't have any more.
Any other further questions, for council? Chief, you have anything else?
No, I mean, if no one has any.
Chief, just one question on the laterals. How does that work? Is there like a sports analogy? Do you contact other department people quietly or
Formally,
how do they know that?
um,
Why was it so successful here?
we advertise.
It's like the private schools recruiting from the,
We advertise social media. Word of mouth is big, you know, our officers know a lot of officers in the law enforcement community. What we've found, we get two different types of officer. We'll get a 2-3 year person from a smaller agency that's looking to move to a larger agency. We'll also get retirees from other agencies who may have a 20-year pension plan. They retire from that department and they come to us. We're very selective. We're not looking for anyone else's headaches. We're not looking for, you know, retired on duty. We have said no to several people. And it's worked. It's worked when you have a 20-year veteran who still has some gas left in the tank, working that midnight shift with someone who's brand new. It rubs off. That experience rubs off on them. It's like an informal supervisor out there. You know, traditionally our midnight shift would be those with the least amount of seniority, the least amount of experience. So this is a good way to kind of merge the two.
thanks.
On the, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. I was
Say
gonna
thank-
get the police side. All right, so on the police side, that line item for the detail paid, which is 1.2 million. Can you explain to everyone and anyone watching what exactly that line item is used for?
Sure. So the police detail line item in expenses is used when an officer or a retired officer or a traffic control person works a detail. We pay them up front and then we collect from the company. We collect more than we pay the officer. So it's a net revenue. We also charge for the cruiser. Anytime there's a cruiser out there, we charge the company $25 per hour. So that's a net revenue.
And maybe it's a question for Malcolm, and I bring this line item up. I brought it up every year since I've been sitting here. For years, just go back 2021, 2020, 2021. How much has been utilized in payouts for that 1.2? Or as the officers wait for them to get paid? What's the
So in 19, I have looked like a little over 1.1. In 20, which I believe had a lot to do with COVID, it dipped under $1 million in what we paid out. And then I have 19 and 20 here for some reason. I don't have 21.
So the line item you see for the police detail is offset by projected revenue on details. So we're not going to the taxpayers or the tax levy to fund that line. Let's say you eliminated that line tomorrow. We would just go and eliminate the projected revenue that funds that line. And so it would have zero impact on the bottom line of the budget. I think that's something, Malcolm, am I correct? That's how that line item is budgeted based on projected revenue in the detail line. If you look at the police revenue line, there's a matching line that matches up to that.
Yes, normally, if you have, say, 1.2 and expenses on the revenue side, you'll have about 1.4, 1.45. There's usually a couple $100,000 more that we expect to collect in revenue. We don't really change that line very often. I mean, we could, but they'd be going up and down the same amount. There'd still be a difference between the two of about 200.
The line item above 44,701, that police detail and revenues, can you explain that one? F 1.4 million. I'm on page 98, the it's line item 44,701 in revenues up top. Is that what was, yeah, just, can you just explain that?
Yeah, that's the expected revenue coming in that we would collect from the companies.
Such as detail, vehicle pay, the $25 an hour for the vehicle pay.
I believe the vehicle pay is separate. The vehicle pay, oh yeah, I'm sorry, yep. 1.125 in police detail coming in, and 360,000 in vehicle. For the total of the 1.485.
And you're saying that this 1.2 that's listed in line item 51119 does not add to the proposed budget by category in total to that 17 million. 0.065. You're saying that that 1.2 does not add to that $17 million overall.
It's included in that 17 million. It's just you've got 14.8 in revenue and 1.48 in revenue and 1.2 million expenses. There's $280,000.
Where does that revenue, that 1.4, where does that revenue go?
Back to the general fund. And normally, you know, it all goes in the general fund, but in theory, I guess you'd say 1.2 or 1 point, whatever we spend out would go to cover the gas that was used and the employees, the overtime that we paid. Like I said, it was just under $1 million.
What does $1 million equate to percentage wise, an increase?
Just about 1%.
If this 1.2 was removed, erased from this line item, would that have any effect on that percentage increase overall?
If you just move the expense,
You just delete it completely,
right,
got rid of the 1.2.
but then where would it go? What I'm saying is,
It's not no longer an expense, I'm saying.
but then you'd have, but we're still gonna have to pay it. City's gonna have to pay it. So if you moved it into a separate fund, you'd also have to move the revenue. So there really wouldn't be.
Theoretically, if we were to take out this 1.2, delete it from this budget, would that have any effect on the overall percentage? It would increase or decrease?
Well, you may have a little decrease because of that 280,000. If you move the 1.2 out and exactly 1.2 in revenue, there would be a difference of $200,000-300,000. which Could be transferred back into the general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Any other further questions?
Chief, just one question. You had said that there were 11 currently employed in the communication dispatchers. Is that
Correct.
But on here, it says that there's 3 vacant dispatch in the budget. There's vacant dispatchers, 3.
Well, right now, as we speak, we have 6 full-time dispatchers. We're budgeting for 11. I'm not, what is it that you're looking at?
Right, well, it says that you're budgeting for 12.
Well, one of those positions is not a dispatch position,
Oh, yep.
so it's 11 dispatchers that we're budgeting.
And you currently only have 6.
That's correct.
When you spoke earlier, I heard that you had 11, but you're just budgeting for
Budgeted, not in seats right now.
And that's the same vacancies from last year, correct?
We didn't have that many vacancies last year. No.
We had 11 dispatchers last year also, correct? Those new positions that are projected are going to be needed.
Yes, we had 11 last year. We had 11 budgeted and we had some point, I would say we had 11 actual dispatchers, but there's been a lot of attrition.
But was there 6 vacancies, is basically what I'm asking last year?
Last fiscal year, I mean, during the year, there was different times, there was different amounts of vacancies.
You're not adding any more personnel?
No, we're not adding. We're
You've
to
lost.
have the same amount as last year.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Chief Quick?
Good evening, council. Guys ready?
We're ready.
Okay. I'm gonna start off with my mission statement. East Providence Fire Department is dedicated to saving lives and property by safeguarding our citizens through progressive code enforcement, fire prevention, public education, effective emergency response, and adapting to the changing needs of the community. And it's been another busy fiscal year for us. I'm going to give you a grants update. And we applied and were awarded several federal grants totaling $1.8 million. Received a $933,000 grant to create a community program, community paramedic program. 25 members of the fire department will be trained to the paramedic level. The tuition, overtime, and backfill for each member will be paid by the grant. The grant will also help expand and improve our emergency medical service and increase the level of pre-hospital care to our residents. We also received a $917,000 grant to replace our self-contained breathing apparatus, which is also our air packs. And we also, and I told you guys this already, we applied for a SAFER grant. We didn't get the SAFER grant. It was for $7.3 million. It was to hire 24 additional firefighters. And the grant would have paid for salaries and benefits to the city for 3 years. Now, the last fiscal year, the council funded 35th Training Academy. The recruitment was put on the fast track in case we received the SAFER grant in a fast fashion, which we never received it. So the department trained and hired 20 new firefighters. The 20 probationary firefighters will fill the 10 vacancies that we currently have in 3 long-term absences. The remaining probationary members will be the extra firefighters on the 4 shifts. And that'll reduce the overtime. We have a tentative agreement with Local 850, so I can't really talk too much about the contract. But some of the contract benefits and salary are in this budget. So the 4th rescue's been in service for MOA. It started late last year, and it was maybe about a month and a half, we signed another MOA, and it's in service now, running Monday through Friday, 8 to 6. Capital update. A capital project to replace engine 4 has been delayed, and we're waiting for invoices from the manufacturers. They're just so slow again getting the invoices to us. Engine 4 came about $300,000 over budget, so we working very hard to bring that number down. We're going to see you maybe next council meeting or the meeting after that. EMA update. We vaccinated over 43,000 people. We managed over 200 vaccination clinics. We gave out over 50,000 COVID-19 self-tests to the public. We finished the vaccinations in July of 2022. And of course, the city is well prepared for any emergency or any severe weather event. So our total budget right now is at $24.9 million. It's an increase of about $49,000 over last year's budget. And that's due to pension contribution, the CBA that we will sign sometime this week. And we're also adding a assistant chief to the fire department. Questions?
Chief, I just want to commend you, your men and women that work under you for the job during COVID. You did a wonderful job. Well, you even took it out on the road, showed up to just about every event that was happening in the city, had your tents prepared, giving out shots. You were doing it all during that period of time. So I want to commend all of you work, hard work that you did, because I know guys were working on the clock.
Yeah, the whole department
Was all
we
safe.
rolled up our sleeves and we
You rolled up my
Got it
sleeve
done.
as well. a
got it
couple
done.
of times.
Council President, Chief, the fourth rescue that you reference is that the one that has been the concern of Council President, mostly the Rumford area? Okay, and so you have projected peak times when it's in service. It's working okay? Have there been any outstanding problems that you can report? Any,
It's running smoothly now. So,
been no instances of someone waiting an inordinate amount of time for a rescue or?
still have mutual aid coming in every day. On my way here, we had mutual aid into the city.
And we still send out mutual aid at times?
And we send out mutual aid just about every day. We are a consumer of mutual aid right now.
This goes to show you the need that is out there, you know, unfortunately.
So I want to point to something.
Please do.
We'll go back to the budget in 2019. I know we had a lot of push and pull, specifically about overtime. I think this council communicated a desire to see that overtime decrease. Certainly I did. And I know that we expressed a preference for seeing it increase seeing the overtime decrease by seeing the number of firefighters come on board increase, which is over time exactly what on last couple of years.
That's good.
So is it right to conclude that, I think this might be the first year that we're seeing a reduction in overtime versus an increase in overtime, that is the factor, right? That is the key, that you were able to add bodies.
Yes, sir.
So excellent job.
Thank you.
Chief, just a question. You mentioned receiving that grant to get firefighters. What was the number? I missed the number to get them to the paramedic level.
25.
But they'd still remain under the FTE as just firefighters, or were you looking, are they going to be
No,
differentiated?
they'll be cross-trained firefighter or medic. Yeah, we also have six.
Right, right.
You step up to the mic. Just step up to the mic so the public can hear you as well.
So we had 6 paramedics already.
Mhm.
We had 4 in school, makes 10. Grant gives us another 25. So we'll have 35 by the end of this fiscal year. The second class we're running is starting. Actually,
And just for the viewers watching, can you explain what the difference between an EMT cardiac and a paramedic is for the public?
EMT cardiac, probably schooling is about 5 months. And then doing precepts for another 100 hours for a paramedic. Typically a year-long training, at least 100 in the hospital.
Skill set is a little bit more extensive in the scope of practice.
A lot more in scope of practice. When you boil it down to types of medications, delivery, what they can do versus paramedic, it's pretty close.
Mm.
And Rhode Island is probably the last state, I believe, that has a modified advanced life support.
I mean, I think it's great. It's something that I know I've discussed previously about getting, and utilizing maybe more of a squad versus having to send out maybe some of the engines, because I know we send out mutual aid. It's a call, it's an engine or a ladder truck to assist, because you don't know what the situation is when you get there. So it's really the manning the scene.
Part of this grant is community paramedicine.
Mhm.
The community paramedicine program we look to institute going forward would be to have 1 or 2 people working during the day, maybe work with the projected community health center, and then you would be able to reduce some of the day-to-day. You see people go to the hospital and probably somebody showed up, check their meds, their blood pressure, talk to them, got them something they needed, and those are the people that don't have the health services or the visiting nurses. Community paramedicine will reduce the number of calls and services. Just like Medicare, Medicaid.
Mhm.
Hospitals pay fines every year when somebody gets discharged and they go back to the hospital again within 30 days.
Mhm.
Hospitals don't see that. So some states have been working with the hospital organizations to community paramedicine.
No, I think it's great.
The other-
Mhm.
We're only literally in the infant stages of it,
Right, right.
but the grant gave us a kicker because it's $1 million to train 20.
No, it's a lot. It's a big commitment, but I think the win on the other side, the payback,
The
one
long
for
goal,
the residents and then for we don't want to just say that it's a budget because it's not. It's really about serving, but the payback.
You have a
is
vulnerable
dividends.
population.
Right.
I mean, senior center delivers to them every day.
Yeah.
So the healthcare portion of it, we're trying to get
help.
on board with that and pretty much they're doing around.
Right,
We'll
thank
be
you.
the second community.
Yeah, no, I think it's something that, it's a long time coming. And it's a long time to get there. Goes into it. So I appreciate the efforts that you guys have been making to get that going. We can keep getting the funding. That's, a bonus for everybody.
Chief, I just want to go back to that 7 point whatever grant,
$7.3 million.
$7.3 million.
grant.
Is that every 3 years, that grant?
No, it's
Or
actually every year.
It is every year. Okay, so you applied last year, didn't get it. And how about this year?
This year, we applied for a ladder truck. We're in desperate need for a ladder truck. We have two used ladder trucks that were a Band-Aid a couple of years ago.
Right.
So that was our priority.
Couldn't
The
that have
increased
come-
manpower.
Yep. Couldn't that-
So we wouldn't.
Right. Couldn't that have come out of capital improvement?
I don't think,
So,
Right now, the fire department.
right.
So to take that burden off. And there's a very strict formula for vehicles. So right now, the only vehicles. we have formula for is-
Mhm.
Yes, let's say $1 million.
yeah, and I only asked that question only because if there's an opportunity at that $7.3 million as well.
Well, we had
Right.
that up to when we did it. That's probably my fault. I put it to 24. Did a grant years ago, it was 18. We were awarded, but it didn't get. So that number dropped down a little bit. It's pretty much, we're fighting with everybody in the country.
Right.
Everybody puts in their stuff.
Mhm.
It goes by peer review, and then they rate everybody. So I think we were just out of reach.
Thank you.
That was last year. I missed about this year's. Are we still waiting to hear or has that been
Oh, the ladder truck.
Yeah,
September.
we couldn't,
the 7.3? And
that was
Yes,
that
that's going.
grant we asked for.
We did
So-
not get.
well, we're asking again.
Well, we didn't ask again because we followed the process of putting the new 21.
Okay.
Which we wanted to put 24 and actually through the process, get down to 21. And we dropped out. That's where we are with 20. But now we're heavy. So in order to meet the grant, we need to be light. And then we have to propose additional positions. 'Cause
And
that's
that-
the key of
and
the
it has to
grant.
do with fiscal stabilization.
Right.
Thanks.
Any other further questions?
I have one.
Please.
And I
Yes.
want to follow up on something that Councilwoman Super was asked about with regard to our dispatcher. In last year's budget, we projected 3 vacancies. In this year's budget, 3 vacancies. How many currently on staff?
Right now, I believe it's
6.
6. And is that about the same number that we've had for a couple of years?
No, we've had a couple of dispatchers that have left in the last month or so. I think.
Yeah, this year we bounced back and forth. I think the most we had at one time was 8.
So we desperately need dispatchers.
We're going through a process right now, and I think we have a list. And we're looking to hire 5 immediately. We want to hire 5 and it's starting with the background checks and we're hoping to bring them on immediately so that we can fully staff that. It's been a crisis situation that's going on all across the nation. They can't find communications personnel. You just have to Google it and you'll see that people are having a hard time all across the nation. But we've brought people on, they're there for a little while and they leave. They want to go somewhere else. So it's been difficult because we have brought people on. We actually did a training class. We had a bunch of graduates. And after the training class, we had one girl who thought we were going to come on a job. She told us no, she didn't want to do it. So I don't know if that's just the climate out there, the workforce difficulties that we're having across the nation. We're feeling it also on dispatch. We're hoping out of this latest list that we can onboard 5 immediately. That'll bring us to 11. We'll have 11 dispatches.
Yeah, I don't think I'm questioning, like, my question's to Chief Francisconi, right? I'm absolutely not questioning the need. I mean, I think if we could get 103 officers this year, certainly we would fund that, right, without question. And I think the same thing with the dispatchers. My question is, are we overfunding a realistic expectation? If we've had so much difficulty getting and keeping them, what makes us think this year will be the year where we get 5 more and we're able to hold on to?
But if I may, I think the last, as hard as it is to onboard people, the last several months have been an anomaly with people leaving. It just was a confluence of things. I mean, we had someone who during their training decided it wasn't for them. We had a dispatcher, his husband got a job somewhere else. They moved to New Hampshire. We had a dispatcher that for family reasons had to move to California. So those aren't things that happen all the time. You know, it was just, we had a bad few months and with, you know, people not leaving because necessarily they were unhappy, but just they had, you know, life to deal with. So I think we can get to 11. I don't think that's an issue. I think with this current full-time hiring process we had more candidates than in the past. From what I'm hearing, we have some decent candidates in there, not just numbers. So I'm optimistic this time around.
Chief, is the application period still open if people are listening or
No, it's not.
so it's too late to apply?
Yeah, we're in the background phase. We're doing background checks.
As far as dispatch, have they moved already?
No, not yet. And I think Chief Gary may be able to speak to that timeline.
Haven't physically been moved yet. But the changes, sorry, they have not physically been moved yet, but most of the logistics are in place. Looking at, it'd be really pushing it to get to the end of September, but it's more looking like October.
What's the holdup?
I'm sorry.
What's the holdup?
The holdup is vendors to get anything done right now, like running fiber, some of the equipment, even the furniture itself, we had to wait 7 months for. And then we had to wait for more parts because everybody's having problems with their supply chains. You see it around the country.
And what's going to be the total cost for that conversion? Equipped.
The final numbers. I'm taking care of part of it, parts IT.
Chief, do you know, or Malcolm, what the projected number is for that conversion?
I do not know.
So we're just hiring vendors and running cable and ordering chairs and not knowing what the budget is for this dispatch communication conversion. Or where the money's coming from, maybe that's a better question. Where's that money coming from to make this conversion? And what's the projected cost? We have to know what the projected cost if we're gonna do the brand new communications or update the one that was built 20 years ago.
I believe we're using ARPA funds for that. And we do have a running total. I don't have it handy of where we're at.
Is it possible to get that running total to, you know, where we're at this point? Can I get that like soon?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Malcolm, while you're up there, and I'm sorry, Councilman Murata, were you finished?
Yes, thank you.
When we do our next workshop, is it possible for you to produce one of those monthly updates, the ones that we typically get with our packets? Okay, that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Any other further questions from the council? Not,
Just on the communication, I don't know who, I guess it depends on the question, who's gonna answer it. When it is fully turned over, potentially October. I know last year we were discussing who was going to be supervising or who was gonna be there overseeing the dispatchers. I don't see whether that's indicated in that line item. It just talks about dispatchers. So who's gonna be at that station?
The operations are all going to be the same. It's just going to be a new location. It's still scheduled by the police department.
So there'll be a police
Still gonna
officer
be-
at the,
They're going to be dispatching exactly as they are now.
and being overseen by the police. Is it a sergeant?
More of a joint. So if you were working for fire, you'll be sort of battalion chief under the fire department. And for the police officer, OIC, when you're dispatching.
So on a shift, how many, is it two or how many dispatchers are typically?
If we're full staffed, it's, 3 first shift, 3 second shift, and 2 midnight to 8.
And so how do you divide who's working for who? So is it 2 for fire or they just work collectively? How does that?
It's 2 for both. So if there's only 2 in the room,
Right, and
one's
it's one
doing
for
fire,
each.
one's doing police,
Okay.
but they have the capability to do for both. So they cover each other, which is what we do now, which is what we've been doing for years.
But there will be a police officer at that station? No. So they'll be by themselves? No, well, I mean, they're gonna be,
They won't be by themselves.
they'll be in the fire station with the rest of the fire,
There's an issue on the fire side. We take care of it.
right,
Issue on the police.
while
take
somebody
care
in.
of
I see things,
it.
yeah.
IT issue.
Okay.
But it's completely secure. It's completely sprinklered. It's fully fire alarmed.
So if it's an issue on the police side, they'd have to contact the police station to just talk to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, we're in constant contact. We have an officer in charge 24/7, that, you know, one of their responsibilities is to oversee the dispatchers. So there'll always be contact.
But that officer would be at the police station.
Yes, that officer will be at the police station.
And the same thing for our battalion chief.
any other further questions? If not, thank you, Chief. Thank you. Public Works, Mr. Borges.
Evening, council. So I have a handful of budgets before you.
okay.
Guess we can start with the first one and go down the line.
Would you like to begin?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you
Oh,
have
okay.
them. They're
I
pretty
didn't know if you
straightforward,
had an intro.
very
Um,
minimal.
At the pleasure of the council.
So I'll start, I guess, if that's okay. And Dan, I'm gonna go, first of all, thank you for everything. I don't know if people see it all. I mean, I think you probably get most of my anybody in the city. And I want to thank you for always being responsive, doing everything you can to address concerns across the city, which we know are considerable. I mean, I don't know how many tree emails I've sent you, but I expect more. And I thank you for being patient and just working well. When I look at this budget across the board, I see a reasonable, responsible budget, especially with regard to focus on not overburdening the taxpayer. When I think about where most of the concerns that come to me come from, they're not about fire, police, schools, they're about something DPW related. Right? Trees are a great example, roads, sidewalks, whatever. I think what has raised to a high level of concern for me, especially over the last year and a half, is parks. And it's not because the park staff doesn't do a tremendous job. It's because I believe that there are not enough parks employees. I know that that is a physical job. I know that physical jobs are frequently associated with injuries and timeout, stuff like that. And I also know that during the months when people are in the parks, which is the nicer months, is when there is the most work to do, right? Weeding, cutting, trash, etc. I don't know that, well, there might be someone in the city that spends more time in parks than me, but I don't know who it is, with baseball running basically from March to November. Every time I have a question or concern, I get an immediate response, right? And the response is always focused on resolving the issue to the extent that it can be done. I have a strong feeling that with another 2 or 3 employees in that parks department, I think that you would see a lot of relief on the current employees. I think that a lot of the issues that we're seeing are labor related. I'm sort of inclined to look in this budget cycle to pop a couple of more folks specifically into that area. So I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point. We certainly struggled throughout, the warmer season, when grass cutting season was upon us. I mean, that is our busiest time, from, not only keeping up with grass, but also, everything else that comes up aside from that. I will say that, part of the problem we faced this year was that we were short-staffed. We had vacant positions that were open during our busiest time. So it's difficult to, specifically say that, yes, we need more staff, but I think that we certainly struggled because we had vacancies. There were, staff members assigned to a specific park that, we had to keep rotating to try to, keep up with that work. So the vacant positions have been extremely difficult, not only in parks, but highway. I mean, if we want to talk water department throughout DPW, it's been an absolute struggle to get people onboarded and get people to actually apply for these positions. That's been one of the more challenging.
And are you having difficulty? Is your need greater for like entry-level staff or for more senior seasoned people? Or is it kind of dependent?
I mean, our staff, whether you're a laborer all the way up to a lead worker, they're all doing essentially the same task. Even though a laborer is running a crew, they're still cutting grass. They're still doing everything that, someone below them would be doing. So I think the positions, if we're talking parks specifically, the positions are fairly universal from a labor standpoint. I mean, if we're talking, from a laborer to a machine operator, I mean, there's some licenses that are involved there, in order to operate machinery. But yeah, the positions are fairly universal.
One of the big things that I see happen frequently, and it's, with baseball tournament stuff going on the weekends, and there may or may not be somebody available to cover that particular park for the weekend. And you got an 8-9 hour baseball tournament. You've got people overfilling trash cans. I mean, I don't know where they think the trash is going to go. They just keep piling it up there, right? And then you go in the next day and there's trash all over the ground, right? And understanding that if there's nobody there on schedule to pick it up, that's what's going to happen. What about weekend staff, specifically dedicated to those types of things?
Yeah, I mean, so due to the vacancies we had, throughout our busy time, we actually part of the contract that we signed with the steelworkers, we actually designated 2 employees full-time now on a rotating basis on Saturdays and Sundays. Because of the vacancies and trying to keep up with all the grass cutting, we weren't able to move those employees into those positions. Now that we actually are fully staffed, we do have 2 staff members that work Saturdays and Sundays now, which has been really helping to alleviate, trash pickup, being able to help, organizations that are, have events in our parks, and being more readily available to, people using our facilities on the weekend. So that's been a huge help, but that really only started happening, about a month ago because of the vacancies prior to that point.
Had enough interact when you recent hires last weekend. He was supporting the folk festival. It was fantastic. It was great with everybody there. He was helping people going down from heat. So did a great job. Talk to me about trees a little bit, right? We have 2 full-time staff members dedicated to the city tree. Right?
We do, yeah, we have, 1 arborist and then we have 1 laborer that works with the city arborist. So we have 2 people, maintaining all of our trees in the city, from removals to, simple trimming.
And we've got a fairly substantial backlog of need.
We do. We were able to, offset some of that with some funding in the budget. We did hire a private company to help, get some of the backlog due to COVID when we were, on alternating schedules. So we've made some progress and have started to catch up on that. And that's made a big help hiring outside private company to, remove trees. Their crews are much larger, so they have the ability, to take down a tree that will take us, 1 to 2 days, depending on the complexity around wires. Where these companies can, take down 2-3 trees a day.
I saw them take down a 60-foot tree on my street in like 90 minutes. But and a lot of people don't want them taken down. They just don't want a gigantic dead limb falling on a garage car, house, or person. Right?
Yeah, we're very conservative with tree removals. We do not want to remove trees. That is not our plan. We inspect each tree personally. An action is taken on the tree, whether it's, trimming or recommended removal due to, disease, whatever it might be. So we try not to remove trees to the best of our ability.
I think that's all my questions. Yet I remain firmly in the camp of you need more people.
So Director Borges, if I may, Mr. President, I'm of like mind with the councilman. I think that this is a big department and there's a lot of work in the city and it requires some more manpower to accomplish it because there are not just the parks alone, but the different projects that have sprung up and different capital improvement projects. So when you take from one to place somewhere else to get that done, other things have to get left behind or put on the back burner. So I think, strategically looking at what we need and how we can best utilize people. Maybe we're not competitive enough in the cost to acquire people in these positions. I don't know what the, entry level is for some of your laborers. And I noticed that you had said, I don't know if maybe it's in a different budget, but you have the tree trimmer in your parks and highway, but is the tree warden in a different department?
The tree warden's part of the Parks Department.
So but he's not listed in here as the tree warden?
He is, so the tree warden is the construction specialist. He acts in both jobs. So he specifically is the one who goes out and actually inspects the trees. But that's not a full-time job. I mean, it's something that, we'll get, I don't know, a few calls a month on trees. He'll do that on the side, outside of his, normal duties.
I mean, I'm of the mind, having spoken with the tree commission that we have here in the city, who's done extensive work, as I'm sure you get CC'd on all the emails, and their concerns with, different things around the city with trees and us maintaining it. I mean, we want to be planting new trees, but there's significant maintenance that needs to take place with that. And there hasn't been any designation to do that because, again, our people are doing all kinds of things throughout the city that are necessary, right? And so maybe watering trees, newly planted trees consistently for the next 6 weeks isn't as high on the priority list as repairing, sidewalks or addressing something else in the city that's a little bit more important. Nonetheless, it's still important, right? Because you're not going to waste money on planting a bunch of trees and then they end up dying, not doing well. So I think the city being a tree city and wanting to maintain that and holding its head high, saying that we're a tree city and that we, love to be that, then we need to be able to fund a full-time tree warden who can do those types of things, work with the committee, and work with the tree trimmer, who I think that's his own, the specific job is just to go around and do trimmings,
Right. the city
not just
arborist.
branches, correct?
Correct.
I would imagine.
He removes trees, trims trees. He does all the maintenance that's required that we either receive or, outside of, in our parks, city parks, city properties.
All right, so on the street, so on city, coming down Taunton Avenue, the trees that are on the sidewalks, whose responsibility are those to trim and
Us.
maintain?
Yeah, the city.
So, because it's not just, sometimes people think, well, getting up in those buckets and trimming those tree branches is important because we have the lines that they have to make sure that they don't go into, but you also have the base of tree that then sprouts, almost like a whole nother forest at the base and isn't very beautifying towards, in the community. So is that something, when I'm thinking about a tree trimmer, and that's their sole role, it's a lot for one person, right, to be able to do that, and then to only have a part-time tree warden who could potentially be assisting in those things.
Yeah, the tree warden, the tree warden is,
arborist.
responsible for making, recommendations whether a tree's diseased or not. The arborist is the one who, then takes action dependent on the tree warden's recommendation. If I can step back a little bit, just with regards to maintenance of, new plantings, we have a really great system now with using some of our part-time staff that we staff throughout the summer. We have them going out in the week, watering everything from, city hall plantings outside to, every tree that we've planted over the last year to year and a half. So I think we've got
That's good to know.
a good approach at, having a good watering plan. And that's something that's done, 7 to 3, Monday through Friday. That's every day.
Yeah, that's good to know. That's important for the vitality of the trees. So do we not have an arborist? I don't want to assume that the tree trimmer is an arborist. We do not have an arborist in the city.
No, we have an arborist. We have someone who trims the trees, and we have
And that's the landscape construction specialist.
the landscape construction specialist is our tree warden. He receives a stipend every year to, perform that duty.
Mhm. And then is the arborist under the parks and highway, or is it under something else?
Put up right now, just so I don't misspeak. So we have, he's our tree trimmer, or tree, whatever you want to, call that position, but
Well, I mean, I wouldn't, if I was I wouldn't want to, if I was an arborist, I wouldn't want to be a tree trimmer.
he's a certified he's a certified
Okay,
arborist.
just to make sure, I just want
Yeah.
to be correct in the terms. All
I
right,
think in the workforce plan, he might be under tree trimmer.
okay. So it's just a word choice. Okay. Just to be clear, thank you. Trying to give you a hard time.
No, I know.
How many, just one more question, I'm sorry. So, 2022, 2023, 43 for each projected, FTEs. What is our current vacancy? What is our current, staffing?
So 43 includes Parks and Highway, since those two divisions are together.
Sure.
Currently, we are fully staffed on the park side, minus filling the clerk position. So we have, a full staff of laborers, drivers, and lead workers. Our highway department is what's understaffed at the moment. We have 2 laborer vacancies, 1 driver vacancy, and a lead worker vacancy. So 2, 3, 4, 5 total, including the clerk.
Thank you.
President, In the interest of time, I won't repeat what's been said before me because I'm in agreement with it all. Like Councilman Cahoon, I'm in many of the parks several times a week, at least monthly, and throughout the year. And while I'm satisfied with staffing at police and fire and some other areas, but I really think we need somehow at some time, I understand it's not tonight, but through this budget process of increasing some of the staff at Parks and Rec. It might be to move some people around from other departments. Quickly, as I went around and visited, I think we have over 300 acres of parks and fields in the city, from Crescent Park, from the tip of Riverside to the tip of Rumford. We have some great open spaces, and without a drought and in a growing season, I mean, it's tough to keep up with the grass. Anyone who has fairly sizable yard knows that that you can be cutting grass every few days in the growing season. And as Councilman Cahoon said, we all get a lot of complaints. A lot of the calls I get are from organizations and people in general about, gee, the condition of the field. And I know our staff is trying. I know we have 2 people committed to a tree truck. We have 1 person, at one point, and I guess maybe in better times financially, we had Pierce Field staff that stayed at Pierce Field. Now they have to move around the city. And so, Pierce can run down when they're not there. They have duties that people don't understand, in addition to, and I'm reading from all the different interviews as I went around and talked to workers and people and to yourself, and they're painting and diagramming athletic fields. They're planting trees. They prepare all city events like Heritage Days and other things. These are big events, special projects like building a dog park. It's nice we all sit up here and say, oh, let's have a dog park, or let's have a walking path, or let's have this and that. Somebody's got to build it and then maintain it. And they also do things like snow removal in the winter. They're not sitting around when the weather isn't appropriate. They assist highway, they clean streets. They do things like, I was at an event at Crescent Park, one of the many great events we've had this summer, and some neighbors from the neighborhood behind the carousel, not the terrace, but the other side, come over and said they had a little park there that hadn't been maintained. All the time I spent in that area, I didn't know there was a little park. It's very small, maybe a quarter the size of this room, but it goes over to the bay side, the cove side. And yeah, there's a little bridge and it needs to be worked on. There's just so many little things that go along with the big things. And I'm not throwing any stones. It's no one's fault. We've all tried to be frugal with help. But we need some help with parks and recreation. And I have seen the improvements in the past 3 years. When I first got on this council, Pierce Stadium was falling apart. We've since brought that back immensely. Football and baseball, they each got a scoreboard. They each got a PA system, which wasn't working. We had a new fence installed, which had spiked bottoms that was impaling ball players, and it had to be ripped out of there. So don't get me wrong, we have come a long way, and I don't want to see us lose it.
And I just want to expound upon the situation with the parks this year in particular. During the height of the season, we had an employee who was out long-term injured on duty. He's back now, right? Is he back now?
Yeah.
Okay. Still limited, but he's back. So he was down. Then we had another employee who was a light duty situation during the height of the season who couldn't operate basic equipment, and he's back now. He's back. And then we had some vacancies that we have filled. Now, the good news is, with this level of staffing, we've been able to maintain our parks to an acceptable level when everyone's there working. So the FTE positions, it's always great to have more. Look, I mean, if you wanted to give us 10, 15, 20 extra people, yeah, we'd be incredible. But there's always a cost associated with that. And there's going to be an increase in the budget and an increase on the tax levy for the residents. Now, I will tell you this. The same level of staffing that we have right now, a couple of years ago, before all this COVID stuff hit us and before we had people out injured, we were maintaining the parks very well. And I had nothing but praise and kudos. The only thing that's changed is that during this last year, during the height of the season, we were out, a long-term employee was out for a long time. We had another one who was light duty and couldn't do his job. And then we had, I think, 1 or 2 vacancies at the time. So yeah, we were short. We were short and it was difficult. What we did, we brought on this year, we brought on a lot of youth. We used some ARPA funds. We created this mayor's youth workforce. And those kids really contributed to helping out with the park a great deal. But I just want the council to be, my opinion is that if we had had full staff during the course of the busiest time of the season, then we absolutely would have been able to maintain our parks. But we had, we had shortages. The other thing too is through negotiations, we were able to get, and everything is negotiations with the union, because you can't just say, hey, I'm going to put people working on the weekends. We were able to negotiate with the union that 2 employees would be working on the weekends at no overtime cost to us. So they just modified their schedule. So their days off would be like Monday, Tuesday, and then they're working on the weekends. And then the other one was, I forget what the other days were. But either way, we did it creatively, working in conjunction with the union to make sure we had coverage on the weekends without having to cost the taxpayers more money. Now, unfortunately, we were short because of injuries, and we were short. We couldn't fill a couple of spots. But it is my belief that come next year, when you have everybody at full capacity, you'll be in a better position. And the other thing too is the DPW director has to take credit for stepping in, and because the way the parks were maintained, there was a method that was changed during the course of the year that really led to some backups. And he came in and he sat down with the whole team and was able to change that back to a more productive scheduling method that he came up with. So that, I think you're going to see the fruits of that next year, especially with a full staff.
We have an extraordinary amount of publicly accessible green space, park space, right? And I've recently been reading a lot about this. And the World Health Organization says that for a city of our size, we should have between about 120 and 500 acres. And we've got 780 acres of publicly accessible space that needs to be maintained. And when I look through the FTEs and who's maintaining, I mean, we're looking maybe at any given time, there's 7, 8 folks that are actually doing that, mowing, weeding, trimming, because people are spread out doing all sorts of different things. I don't know, and I'm completely, your point is well taken, Mayor. Certainly more support means more money, right? More cost. Totally get it. I think that this is an area where that cost would be well spent, right? I think the cost benefit associated with adding staff in these areas would provide a lot that we currently cannot provide to the city.
And to your point, the city will be acquiring another 9.6 acres on that Metacomet land that will have to be maintained. And that's going to be an additional burden to our staff. But like I said, I'm always trying to keep the cost at a reasonable level. If the council so sees fit to add more FTEs, and if we can find the funding and you're all comfortable with that, I'm not going to.
Well, you raised some interesting points here, because I was going to bring up earlier. We have in fiscal year 2022 and 2023 projected 43 employees. My question was going to be, in 2021 and 2020, how many employees do we have at that time as well?
The same.
Would have been the same. So before I commit to increasing, how is it that the work was being able to get done then and it isn't now? And that's what I would like to know going forward before I commit to increasing, because we haven't increased our open space to this point that we're anticipating that additional 9.6 acres of land, which obviously we haven't touched at this point. So if we have 700 acres of space that we're maintaining, we had 700 acres of open space that we have been maintaining with the same amount of people. How was it that it was done then and it can't be done now, or it isn't been done, or hasn't been done at this point in time. And that would be one of the closest thing, one of the things that I would be looking at to increase it. Now, it brings an interesting point about the 9.6 to something we have to really look at, you know, because we have to maintain that space as well. And but more importantly, what are we going to do with that space? Is there going to be any type of, you know, building put on that space that will cut that amount of acreage down for usable in a sense that we're maintaining the property from 9.6 to half the space? I don't know. But before I commit, I would like to see or know that if in fiscal 2020 and fiscal 2021, when the actual work was being done, my concern would be with the same amount of employees that we're having today, 43, using that number. How was it done then? And it's not done now.
It's,
Well, I have a quick question just to piggyback off of the two statements that you gentlemen just made. The 9.7 that the Metacomet has donated to the city, they agreed to maintain that space, did they not?
No,
That's deeded to the
space.
city. That's
Golf course.
The other.
golf course.
golf courses.
And
is
how much
rem-
space was that?
The golf course?
We don't. own the
40.
golf-
No, we're not gonna own the golf course. They'll maintain the golf.
But it's open space for the community,
Right, it's
right?
gonna be a
It's
public golf
private-
course.
Right.
But so the 9.6 acres, I actually walked that space with one of the representatives the other day just to see what that really meant. It's a vast area and it's a lot of rolling hills with a lot of beautiful trees on it. So we don't know yet what's gonna happen with that. What I hope that becomes is just an open pathway that connects to some other pathways within the property eventually that creates another amenity for the community. But Council President, that's why I came up here to speak, because I wanted to make sure that council had a full understanding that the reason why, my belief, the reason why we had difficulty maintaining our parks this year was because we had a full-time person who was out most of the season, another one who was on limited duty most of the season, and you had a couple of vacancies. So you were down 4 people in essence. Now we're at full capacity, is that correct? And they're both back?
One is limited.
One is limited. So I mean, these are the realities. I mean, you've got a workforce, you budget for a workforce, and then, you know, people get hurt, they can't work. So it's, yeah, you're still paying for that position, but they're not actually working because they can't, they're hurt.
Do we know how many people we had before the budget commission came in and kind of took a hatchet to things?
We can research that.
Let's say it was like 19. I don't want to.
And I'm not saying in a single year, we need to replenish that, but they came in with an eye toward, we need to get to a budget number. And, you know, they trimmed some fat and they probably got a little bit too close to the bone in some other areas. I think this is one of the areas where, you know, it was a little too much.
I mean, I can think of an example where we used to have services from the highway and no longer have them. So Warren Avenue and Taunton Avenue used to have trash bins throughout the whole length in front of shops or bakery, you know, in front of different outlets. And now they've all been removed. So there used to be a team that used to go around to parks and throughout the city and empty the trash. And now along those streets, there are no trash cans. And those have been complaints actually from businesses that patrons don't have a place to throw the trash. So they're throwing it on the street and creating more of a nuisance in the
Yeah,
community.
I mean, I think I agree with that sentiment, but I also tend to disagree because I think we've actually gotten a lot of, we've gotten a lot of, you know, people saying how much cleaner the sidewalks are. We had a lot of, you know, all the trash barrels would be full, you know, every day from, you know, local businesses where rather than the businesses taking the trash, it would end up on the road and flowing into the street. So I think it has actually helped the cleanliness of the road. We are actually working with a company to potentially bring some trash cans in that'll be maintained by an outside company, essentially free of charge for the city. It would use the bins as advertisement. So we're sort of working to develop that a little further. And we'll present it to the council when that's prepared.
I think one of the things was the choice of bins too, right? It was just kind of like one of those trash cans that you would see, you know, I don't know, Oscar the Grouch in, where it didn't have a cover and it wasn't that large and there wasn't an insert. You know, if you go to other communities, they have nice reciprocals where you pull down a handle, you throw your trash in, it's self-contained.
think what ultimately happens, we were using, planters that actually should have housed plants for trash receptacles, so that, I think that's part of the problem.
Director Borges, from the two employees that were out on OJI, were they laborers or in a supervisory capacity?
They were laborers, yeah, they were hands-on employees.
The city's currently doing sidewalk repairs, correct?
Yes, we are.
Is that money coming out of that $1 million that was approved for Pawtucket Avenue?
No, we have a roadway repairs line item in our general budget that covers, calls that we receive from residents regarding sidewalk issues or, potholes. So that's sort of an all-encompassing line item. That $1 million is completely separate on top of, the work we're already doing in the city.
Who is doing that work, the sidewalk repairs,
The city sidewalk repairs are the $1 million.
the city sidewalk?
Our highway department does that. We have two crews that are cement crews that go out.
Have they always been highway department employees that have done those, or has it gone out to bid?
City work has always been the city that
To
has
do the
done it,
city
unless we've
sidewalk.
gone out for, a special project.
And there's no Parks Department employees that are doing those sidewalks. They're doing what their job description is, parks, right?
Any other additional questions? We are approaching the 2-hour mark. I don't know how we all feel at this point in time, either continuing or cutting at this.
I just wonder, Mr. President, if we're gonna have going forward in order of departments, I know a couple other department heads here. I hate to see department heads come, sit all night, and then they're never involved, and they come the next time.
The intent.
Can we come up with a schedule? This worked out well so far, but going forward,
Yes, we can. But the intent tonight was to get everyone here from the departments.
Yep.
Depending on how fast we can move, obviously, like I said, I don't know about you all, but I don't want to be here for another hour or two. So we want to say for the next week, what we do is we have all the departments' name on. So in an event that we go fast, we can, without stopping, we can proceed because they're on the list as it is, as opposed to if we name a few departments, then we have to stick with those few departments that we name.
I'm comfortable with the 2-hour mark as previously, discussed and agreed on.
Concur. All right. So on next, we have a council meeting on Tuesday. Next meeting is Thursday, September 8th at 7 p.m. And the next council meeting is Tuesday. That's the council meeting. And the budget workshop meeting is Thursday, September 8th at 7 p.m. And police, fire, and DPW is completed. So utilize your team time freely.
President, move we adjourn then?
Yep. We have a motion to adjourn.
Just one thing, and that's 7 p.m., correct?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't.
Thursday is the 7 p.m.
Thursday, 7 p.m.
Thank you for that consideration.
Anyone, we have a motion on the floor to adjourn. Anyone like to second that? motion?
Second.
We have a second on the motion. Deputy Clerk, do we have a roll call vote on?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you all.